Welcome to this live presentation of IHS University Erasmus Rotterdam, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to Fergal Raftri, and I will leave you the floor, Fergal.
Hi, thank you so much, Federica. Thank you so much for Doc City for organising this event. Hi everyone, my name is Fergal. Federica already introduced me, so I'm the Marketing and Communications Officer for the Institute of Housing and Urban Development, but we call ourselves IHS. And so I have a small presentation for you today. The programs that we offer. And I think those polls were so helpful. I already feel like I'm not just talking to a screen. I feel like I know some of you already now. Yes, so just some small things. This is where I work. This is my campus. So the things that we're going to cover today. So I think as we all established, so a lot of people are finding out about Erasmus and IHS for the first time. So really, I'm going to try and give as much information as possible. So I have some information on what the Netherlands is like, what our students really tend to experience, what's it like to be an international student if you're not from Europe, if you've traveled from a lot far away. And then really after that, I'm going to really dig into the course content. Something we're very dedicated to at IHS is sort of the student stories as well. And so once we talk about the courses and sort of why people like to study with us, I'm then going to talk a little bit about our alumni stories, sort of the employment landscape, and all the practical matters that you need to think about when you're thinking about studying abroad. And then I hope that doesn't take too long, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end. So what I'd say is if you do have any questions during my presentation, please feel free to write them in the chat for me and Federica. So what I'll do is I'll finish the presentation and then we can go through the whatever questions you have one by one. Okay. So why study in the Netherlands with this lovely picture that one of my colleagues has taken. So something that people should really know about the Netherlands is it's a very small country in the north of Europe, as I'm sure you all know. But really it has an outsized impact in the world. So it has one of the highest research outputs of sort of any countries in the world. It has a very good reputation for generating high quality research. It also has a great reputation as an open and friendly country with lots of sort of employment opportunities for young, international, cosmopolitan students, as I'm sure you all are. Similarly, IHS scores very highly in the higher education field anyway. So not only is Erasmus a very highly accredited university, but actually Dutch education generally is very highly regarded. Something else to say, yes, it's beautiful. It's a very picturesque country, as you can see in this picture, but really the things that also make it a very good environment for students, international students particularly, is it's very safe. And English is very much, the Dutch people are very happy speaking the Dutch language. So we always advise students to learn some Dutch whilst they're here, but it's good to know that learning Dutch isn't necessarily a barrier to employment for our students, and it definitely won't impact the year that you have with us either. So now just talk a little bit about Rotterdam. This picture is very different from the last one. So the Netherlands is a very picturesque, old, historic country. Rotterdam, however, is completely different. It's a very urban, modern, new, forward-looking city. It was built after the Second World War, and this history means that it's really become a sort of a case study in urban innovation. So IHS was actually one of the organizations responsible for helping to redevelop the city after the war. And what you find is it's become this, this huge economic hub, economic hub, but also a cultural hub. But also it's become a real center for sustainability initiatives, urban governance initiatives, sort of public administration initiatives. And these all combine to make a very nice and sort of welcoming environment. It means that there's a whole portfolio of people who are interested in urban sustainability, in policy development, in economic resilience, or just sort of disruptive new innovations in Rotterdam. And what we find is that a lot of our students then go on to take up jobs with these people when they graduate with us. So a little about IHS ourselves. So IHS is a small institute, but we have a large global reputation. We've been working in the field of urban management and development for over 60 years, which is a very long and sort of a modern topic. In that period, we've been recognized by UN Habitat as a high caliber institute for urban knowledge. And the reason we are so successful in our field is because what we advocate for is a putting theory into practice way of operating. So what that means is all of our lecturers, all of our academics are active practitioners in urban development. When they're not teaching in a classroom, what they're doing is they are completing large-scale advisory projects with maybe it's local governments, maybe it's with a large aid organization, or maybe it's with a UN body. When they're completing those projects, they then bring them back to the classroom, and these contribute to make the case studies that you will all study on any one of our master's programs. So what we have therefore is we have a very collaborative, open classroom with dialogues of urban professionals, including you, who are then working through these sort of contemporary issues in urban development. And which means that you will leave the classroom with a sort of understanding of what the urban development professional sector looks like. What are the problems you're addressing? What have you learned in the classroom that you can bring into your next career? And whilst we're doing that, that's always contributing to our research as well. Research is a really important part of what we're doing and really helps us sort of maximize our impact and how well people know us globally. So, Erasmus University Rotterdam. I've worked here for about 3 years now. As I was saying, the Dutch education is very highly regarded in itself, but Erasmus University is one of the best universities in the Netherlands globally. But also Erasmus has a sort of an even larger reputation than this in certain areas. Because Rotterdam is this innovative, new, forward-looking city, it has a very, very strong reputations in the field of urban governance, public administration, and sort of development on a local scale. The reason for this is because both our social sciences school and IHS, we work very closely with the local government to deliver on these initiatives and these sort of innovations on a city scale that I was talking about earlier. Other thing I would say is the Erasmus University is one of the only campus-based universities in the Netherlands. So the other ones are sort of mixed within the cities. Ours is campus-based. So students benefit from the additional safety of being on a campus. They also live next to the library. They live next to the bars and cafes and the sports facilities, whilst being sort of right next to the center of the city. So it becomes a very nice community for students, international students particularly, to stay for 1 year or 2 years, depending on how long you study. Yeah. So as I was saying, IHS, we're a completely internationally focused organization. So we're based in part of the Erasmus campus. We're a very small floor, but we have a huge global network. So we have partnerships with research institutes in Kenya, universities in China, and all these active partners that help us facilitate projects that we work on. So when our network is genuinely quite large, we work with large partners like Cities Alliance or ICLAY, as well as sort of other knowledge institutes as well. This helps us sort of really have a global perspective on the work that we're doing, and it also means that we have a very dynamic alumni community who we sort of engage with regularly when they finish with us as well. So moving on to our education programs. As Federico was saying, so we have the Urban Management and Development program. We also have an MSc in Public Administration focusing on urban governance. We're really an urban governance focused organization. Away from that, we have a whole number of other programs. We have a PhD program, and we also have professional development courses. These are 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe 3 months, designed to sort of train urban professionals who may have already studied with us or may need new skill in the rapidly changing field of urban development, and they need to become familiar with smart cities or circular economies or something like this. So I'm going to focus on our master's programs today. So our flagship program is the Urban Management and Development Program. So every year we welcome about 120 students to any one of these 6 tracks that I'm now going to dig into together with you. And then on the Public Administration track, we have about another 50 students. So generally we have about 200 students join us on any one of our master's programs every year. So what that means is, because we take students from about 45 different countries, but we're a small institute, so there's a capacity issue. So sometimes we run out of room. There is a lot of demand for the positions. So I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to sort of explain to you our programs in a bit more detail today, give you lots of time to maybe thinking about applying if IHS sounds like somewhere you'd be interested in. So the first program that I would like to talk to you about is our Strategic Urban Planning and Policies track. Urban planning has an established and important professional field. People have needed it for a long time, but the requirements of urban planners has changed very rapidly over time. Where it used to just be about developing a space, we now are very focused about how do you develop livability and the quality of life in a city. So this asks for people to completely look at a new way at policy development. So what this means is that our students are responsible for assessing a lot of information, coming up with lots of different ideas and concepts, and really thinking very strategically about what will be the effects of an initiative in an urban space. Will this enfranchise, will this have a gender-based repercussions? Will this give too much power to a local government or to the private sector? So the idea is that our students are able to complete stakeholder analysis. They're very comfortable in not just formulating a possible plan or policy intervention. They also are very confident in a management position. What you will do is you will have a lot of experience from our program in a management field, thinking of a concept and implementing a concept. This is done because we look at a real life case study in Rotterdam, which will work together independently and within a group structure, and you'll present it to as an academic piece of work, and it will then be scrutinized. So the idea is we're giving all of the skills that you would need in urban planning anyway, but we're trying to deliver it in a as realistic way as possible for you. The next track I would like to talk to you about is our Infrastructure and Green Cities track. So the supply and demand for new infrastructure, including the updating and upkeeping of cities, is an ongoing issue. And similarly with the last program as track, as I was saying, there's an ever-growing importance on sustainability. So what we are really focused on is giving students the tools to understand how new infrastructure is proposed, negotiated, developed and implemented. And it really looks at sort of core competencies. So how will it be financed? How do you negotiate for consensus? How do you make enough parties agree to a piece of infrastructure so that it can be implemented? Something that makes this program especially special from an IHS point of view is one of the course coordinator on this course is responsible for developing the IHS Green Cities concept. This is a widely available free toolkit on how students implement sort of greener, more resilient, but also more economically competitive and sustainable infrastructure in the city. So students and local governments use this toolkit all the time. So it's a very useful skill for students to be able to draw on this sort of expertise that we have available in IHS. And so the idea is it's not just about infrastructure, but how does infrastructure affect habitat, ecosystems, water quality? Will it lead to displacement of local communities? Logistical issues like this. And so what we found is that a frequent thesis that students do when they do this track is they look at issues like the circular economy. You know, this big new concept about how do we really look at growth in a new way that doesn't just deplete local areas and things like this. Urban economic development, innovation, and entrepreneurship. So as we've seen for a very long time now. Urbanization is an ongoing trend. People will continue to want to come to cities as hubs of innovation, of economic opportunity, but cities can't just keep accepting new people without there being repercussions on equality, sustainability, pollution, things like this. So firms, employers all want people to come into cities, and so their job is to make sure that local labour markets meets local demands so that they can continue to look up to draw in these people. So what we do is we look at sort of how do cities make themselves competitive, and are they in fact competitive? We look at examples of cities that we thought they were competitive, but they actually weren't very resilient at all. They were either ecologically unsound, environmentally unsound, politically unsound. And so we look at how these things sort of, how do cities compete against each other in these sort of ways. Students on this course benefit specifically from using quite high level advanced data analysis and econometric tools. And that is the main way in which our students will sort of assess the relative strength or weakness or resilience of a city. So, urban housing, equity and social justice. This track is really focused on, it focuses on housing, and it says that housing is a very useful tool at looking at the underlying health of a city. If housing is not well provided, if it doesn't really meet the needs of its citizens, then what else is not working well in the cities? A failure to provide housing leads to enhanced vulnerability for communities, citizens. It also leads to ecological damage, and looks at all these things sort of interrelate. And so it provides students with a very useful way into urban interventions. So if I fix this housing problem, look at what else I can solve in an urban space. This is why it's a very useful way of assessing things like urban poverty, social justice, gender inequality. Also, it's a very useful way of assessing emerging trends, like is there gentrification happening in a community? Is there migration happening in a community? Graduates on this course are very confident in an advocacy space. They're very confident in the field of urban development. They can talk to very sort of senior officials about urban housing based on the tools that we give them, which means that they can very effectively advocate for policy interventions to explain what would be the economic developments, what would be the social justice repercussions. So what we find is that students who do this course, they could have very many different interests. And because you could look at housing to develop a work plan for climate change in an urban space, or maybe you can make a housing needs assessment and say, if housing was addressed here, then maybe there would be less violence in the local area too. Urban environment, sustainability and climate change. I believe this is the most popular choice in the poll. It's very popular sort of every year. Sometimes this class gets full because we get lots of applications for it. So climate change is obviously a huge global issue. It requires everyone to act on it and be conscious of it. But what we really look at here is how do cities on an individual basis intervene to deal with climate change. It's not going to be something with global repercussions. It's going to have a specified, confined effect in an urban space. And what does it do then? How do different individual cities adapt to climate change? This will look different on a coast than it will on top of a mountain. So we look at different case studies to examine how environmental and man-made solutions respond to climate change. This could be about coastal resilience. This could be about the provision of safe water and pollution standards. This could be about the efficiencies of buildings in trapping carbon, of not leaking heat, all these other things. So what we find is that it requires a very technical sort of student. So what we do is we use, again, ICT-based solutions to analyze large data sets. So we use programs like Starter to look at sort of initiatives in the smart city space to say, okay, if we analyze this data, we put it through this software, we can design tools that will have this particular intervention to build climate-based resilience in an area. Land management, law, finance, real estate, and natural resources. It's not the most fun to say. It's got a very long name, but it's probably one of our most popular program. What we find is we have this big global classroom. And it will include engineers, architects, local government officials, economists, sociologists, anthropologists. And what we find is all these students who don't necessarily go together and aren't sort of from the same discipline, they find something to respond to when focusing on land. Obviously, land is the most universal and contested resource in any sort of urban space. And as we've just been talking about with the other tracks, with sort of the environmental considerations, it's becoming even more important to sort of management local space, to make sure that it is local space, to make sure that it's viable, it's competitive, it's stable, environmentally, sociologically, and all other sorts of ways. So this really focuses at governance as a core consideration. How do different stakeholders in a city interrelate, compete, argue, find solutions for locally based solutions? So how are natural resources accessed, negotiated, administered? What you find are in issues like land grabs or forced displacement, where there's been a breakdown of governance. And so what we do is we look at what are the legal systems, what are the financial systems, what are the property rights systems that stop these things from happening. So the idea is that students will be able to analyze any sort of land conflict, and they have a whole tool of knowledge bases on how to solve these problems. Something that's especially good with this program is it really looks at the geospatial data. You use GIS in this course to sort of reason out why this intervention would be effective, whilst having an understanding of sort of legal frameworks to bolster your argument also. So these are the 6 tracks that comprise our urban management and development course. Generally, I would say that you learn within a track, but all these tracks, they learn together. So 70 or 80% of the courses are within your track, but you have these general courses which you do together. It makes a very collaborative classroom. It also means that you're benefiting from the knowledge within the classroom too. And what all of the tracks share is a very high quality of teaching staff, either from our own staff or from guest lecturers we receive in from our partners. We provide field trips, hands-on education, case study-led education within the classroom. All of our teaching is very practically focused. It's really about giving you the skills to be able to apply this knowledge immediately. And something that I would also point out is the international makeup of the classroom makes for a very positive, affirming learning environment. So you're not just learning about housing rights in your field, you're learning about how this all manifests on a global environment as well. And it's an intensive 12-month course. We always say it's a difficult course, but I really think it's a great opportunity. So just quickly, a small note on how the year is organized. It really is a 12-month course. So you start at the first week of October, and your graduation is in the second half of September. So there are 3 set semesters, as with most programs, but the timeline is a little bit more intense. So in block 1, you'll do some work within your tracks, but you'll also be doing sort of introductory courses and general courses together. After Christmas, when you move into block 2, you then go more deeply into your track specialization. We also then offer the opportunity for you to gain some additional skills from our IHS staff. So we run a program of electives, which allow you to do an extra course outside of your specialization if you choose to do that too. So courses that we offer include migration governance in cities, GIS training, smart cities analysis, policy analysis. These are all sort of it's a short 2-week period where you have the ability to sort of pick another aspect of urban development that you may not have been able to try that may be helpful before you start your thesis period. By sort of April, by Easter time, most of the formal teaching is over, and we give over the rest of the months for you to do your fieldwork. You have about 5 or 6 weeks to do your fieldwork, and then come back and you complete your thesis for an August hand-in date. So like I said, there's stuff to do all year round. It is quite an intensive program, but most of our students really benefit, really enjoy that. They want to learn as much as they can in as short a window as they can, because they really want to go and enter the employment sector as soon as possible. So September to September, as I said, the tuition fee is €14,200. We've realized that is more than some other universities. We're not a university, I would say. We are a research institute that offers education, which means that we don't get any government subsidies. So what that means is that all students pay the same tuition fee. There is no EU rates or Dutch rates. Everyone pays the same tuition fee. But at the end, I will talk a little bit about scholarships and waivers in case that is of interest to any of you. Something to bear in mind are the deadlines. Like I said, we do frequently, the classroom frequently does fill up. So bear in mind, we are accepting applications now, and we'll accept them all the way until July. But if you're thinking about applying, please do apply sooner rather than later. We will provide feedback on your application. So we're happy to do that, but we have more time for it. That really helps us. Admissions requirements. So as I was trying to say earlier, there really is not one type of IHS student. It's not about having a certain GPA or having a certain experience. What we do is we ask for a good academic performance that you can show through transcripts and exam results. We want to see sort of evidence that you have some working experience. It's not an entry condition, but we like to see the idea that you can work sort of in a group environment, that you're used to working maybe in an international field. Lots of our students have, this is very much how you will be studying with us. So it is quite important for us to know that from you at the application stage. We also say you do need to have a bachelor's degree, sort of H&D or other qualifications will not do. We also need proof of evidence, an IELTS score of 6.5 overall, with no score under 5.5. But like I said, we look at students from a whole bunch of different fields. So if you're thinking applying, I would say apply, and then we can tell you what went wrong, rather than not applying at all. But we don't require you to do a pre-master or any of these other courses that other universities require. Now, onto the public administration course. So this is our newest program. It's in its 3rd year now. And what we found is it's been very well received. We offer this course as IHS together with the Erasmus School of Social and Behavioural Sciences. So what this is also an urban focused program. So it really digs into where the previous course was quite global in its outlook. This one really looks at Rotterdam as a living case study. A lot of the teaching is done in an urban lab environment, which means that you're really sort of going out in the world and really looking at Rotterdam, how it's sort of implementing these sort of governance solutions on your doorstep kind of thing. So this course is about policy development, policy innovation. It's about how to draw on economic development in a spatial sense. It's about how do you draw in economic development and sort of new businesses. It's how do these opportunities interact with potential issues and conflicts around land, environment, or other ideas. It also asks you to look at sort of collaborative decision making. So how do non-state actors, how do communities develop solutions to governance problems in an urban space on their own also. So a couple very quick reasons why this course has gone very well. So we went from having 5 students 2 years ago to having 35 students this year. So we think there'll be a lot of students joining us next year also. The Erasmus School for Public Administration is one of the best in the world. It's the number 5 in the world currently. It was number 2 last year. Also, you benefit from all the expertise that we have in IHS that I've just been walking you through, together with the facilities and expertise of our public administration school, who have this, who are extremely successful and effective at working with Rotterdam as a local governance partner. Also, it's the combined networks of both of our institutions means that you have access to corporate partners like the Port of Rotterdam, local governance structures like housing associations, as well as all the NGOs and sort of initiatives that I was talking about earlier in the presentation too. Admissions requirements. These are slightly different for this program, so please, if you're unsure about the admissions requirements, do check our website after this. This course does frequently require a pre-master. It has quite a specific brief of student. They normally want someone to have experience in social sciences, specifically in sociology. It also requires students normally to have done a pre-masters. But again, all of these things, it's very hard to assess, to tell you what we're looking for. Again, if you're unsure if you would be right for this course, please do let us know. We would be much happy. We're very happy to sort of answer these questions on a case-by-case basis afterwards also. I would say generally the academic performance is quite high. Again, we receive a lot of applications. So generally students with a higher GPA do get admitted preferentially. Similar in timeline, very different in price, I would say. So it runs a more typical sort of course structure. You start at the beginning of September, you work quite intensely until sort of May, June, and then it's just about getting your thesis prepared in August. Because this is offered within the Erasmus University faculty, EU students do benefit from the tuition fee of 2,168. However, you should note that international students outside of the EU, there is a higher tuition fee of 15,500 euros. So these are the things that are offered across all of our programs. So I think as we all know, sort of, it's really important that any master's degree that you think about doing has a direct link and relevance to the job market that's out there. So this is why we make sure that all of our programs entail some use for sort of statistical software. So GIS, Stata, or R, you will be using those as much or as little as you want. It is up to you how you build your program, but every track uses one of these quantitative programs. We look at urban management from lots of different perspectives. So this looks at very cut and dry skills, like how are initiatives financed? How do you access money to develop an urban space? But also it's the way we teach with sort of soft skills and group work is a lot about the soft skills that you need to be an effective manager. So what we really are training our students to do is become leaders in urban spaces too. Similarly, this is why stakeholder analysis is such a focus for us. It's really important that people can anticipate conflict and negotiate the way out of that conflict. Similarly, fundamentally, we are a governance-focused institution, and what that means is there's a really big focus on urban policy. So all of our students who graduate are very, very effective at speaking to and responding to policy interventions on a global scale also. Okay. So that's all the heavy stuff. So now it's the sort of good news. So what I would say is we do have a database of scholarships on our website. So if any of that financial information put you off, please do go to the resources page on the IHS website and you will find a scholarship database. Scholarships are obviously dependent on many different criteria, so I don't know the scholarship that's right for you, but this is a list of scholarships that are open to every nationality. So everyone would be able to apply to the Holland Scholarship and apply for the early bird tuition discount as well. You are able to combine tuition scholarships as well. I would say our scholarship database is as good as we can make it, but this information changes quite regularly. So if there's not something on the website that's relevant for you, do let us know. We might know of another opportunity that might be available that a student has used recently, but we don't know ourselves, so it's not on our website. A bit more about sort of the learning environment they'll be part of. So we've been very sort of heavy on sort of the content of the program so far, but something that I really try to convey to students is we are an informal organization. So, there's about 150 students with us at any one time. We're 50 staff. We work on one floor of a building together. So we see each other frequently. So what we're really focused on is maximizing your experience with us. So what that means is not just the academic program, but we're making sure we're equipping you for everything you need for when you leave us as well. So we do informal TED Talk sessions, either students or staff, or we get guest lecturers in to do sort of guest lectures. We also have local networks of people, of employers and alumni who come in and give advice on what to look for when you're starting your job search after you graduate. But we also make sure that there are sort of fun elements as well. So we have a social committee made up of students and staff, and we try and make sure that we do something together sort of every 7 to 8 weeks. IHS is small, like I said, but there is right in the middle, right next to the library, there is a bar. So we all meet together on a Friday and we talk about our week together. And what else I was going to say on this? And the career workshops are important also. So we're really looking at what you can do when you graduate. So something I would say is all students who study at IHS, they get a visa for 1 year to complete the program. And then every student is entitled to extend that visa for 1 extra year. So it's called a connection year. So it's about you have 12 full months after you graduate to see if you can find employment in the Netherlands or somewhere else in Europe. So you have lots of time to think about your career when you graduate. So I'm part of the marketing team, but we're part of a broader professional services team. So what that means is we have a whole staff of people who are here to give you program information, as I've tried to do today. We have a housing team that provide information on how to find housing either on campus or in the city of Rotterdam. We also have our own visa service, so you won't apply for your visa, we will apply for your visa for you. And we have a whole onboarding process for you as well. So once you receive your admission letter, you will have already spoken to me or one of my colleagues, maybe starting from this event all the way until you complete payment. And then after that, we have a whole onboarding process for you to what to expect before you start. Sort of some remedial Dutch lessons. It's about what you should pack. It's about local things that you can do whilst you're waiting for the term to start. So what we really prioritize is, as an international organization, is how much support we can give our students as they arrive and as they study with us. It's something that's very important to us. So we don't want you to think that we don't provide any of these services. And again, so this is what we look like. This is what our campus looks like, and some of the facilities that we can offer here. You might use some of these frequently. You might barely use any of these at all. But very heavily discounted gym facilities, 3 or 4 different places to shop on campus, a dedicated supermarket as right next to the library. So you can camp out at campus for as much as you want if you don't want to head into Rotterdam city centre, which is only sort of 10-15 minutes away. So this is an interactive map of our alumni, where they are so far. So currently we have about 9,000 active alumni dotted around the globe. As you can see, I don't think one area is more represented than other areas. We really are global. It's a great environment to learn in. It's a great community to join, and I think that's so good for students to know before they join us, is that when they graduate, the chances are they will be joining one of these dots that already exists. We rarely see our students just once. If even after you become alumni, we might do a project and end up out in Ecuador and meet you guys there, or you might come back to us and do one of our professional development programs or a PhD with us. It happens quite frequently. So the IHS graduates, we have there are many that we could choose from. So some of these are very recent, some of them are less recent. Claudia Lopez, she is the current mayor of Bogota, sort of the second most important position in the Colombian government. She has many degrees and is extremely competent in the area of urban governance, but recently she wrote a letter to us accepting an award on our behalf, speaking about how beneficial it was for her to sort of focus on the governance structures that we really sort of make sure are part of the program. More recently, Max Russell and Rosita Singh, they both graduated 2 years ago. So one of them, many private organizations like Philips have started hiring people who are specialists in sustainability to optimize the sustainability within these sort of large international frameworks of their organizations. So that's what Rosita does. Max Russell's from the UK, but he started working for a new NGO called the Circle Economy, based up in Amsterdam. So he moved to, he lives in the Netherlands full time now. He's been here for 4 years. And it gives you a sort of idea. So there are very established organizations who benefit from IHS graduates, and there are very new organizations and startups that our alumni can move into very quickly as well. Akash actually is very similar. He started his own NGO back in India, sort of looking at community resilience, but also applying it to urban design with his architectural background as well. So that's me done. Thank you for your time, everyone. So if you do have any questions, these are my contact details. If you have any questions about the application process itself, please do contact my colleague, Ni Wang. She's very happy to answer questions for you, and so am I. Please reference if you're from Dock City as well. It'd be great to talk to you again. So now I'll just hand over for the Q&A, I think at the end. Social media channels, that was the last thing. And now Q&A. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Fergal, for the presentation. And it's been great. And while you were talking, we actually received a good number of questions. So we're just going to go through them together. Great. So we actually have one question from Matthews, who's asking us, so we talk about the requirements for the course in urban. He has a degree in environmental engineering. Can this be related?
Yep. So this is a very common background for our students. So they are established in a field such as engineering. And so we have lots of engineers, electrical, engineering, environmental, civil. And what we find is that they bring a very technical understanding to urban governance, which is really helpful in the classroom. And so what we do is we give you a new way to apply your engineering background in a bit more of a less technical setting. But engineers make great IHS graduates, I would say.
Thank you so much. Another question is about, so someone says, thanks for this webinar. I'm not sure if that it has already been said. When is the deadline for application, and is there an interview to pass? What should I prepare? Okay, so there isn't an interview to prepare. Sometimes we interview students because we would like to know more about you. Maybe there's something we're not sure about, but generally for an application, we want all your academic documents. We want a motivational essay, which we explain on our website. And we want a CV. And that's basically it, really. It's a very simple application process, but that our admission colleagues will complete, and our academic colleagues will also have a look at your application also, just to see if you're a right fit for the classroom. So applications are open right now. There is an upcoming scholarship deadline. So if you're interested in the OKP scholarship, which is listed on our website, please apply before February 2020. If you're not looking at scholarship options, you're welcome to apply until July. But as I said,
it's going to be a busy year. We have lots of students interested in joining. So my piece of advice is to apply as soon as possible.
Thank you so much. Benedetta is also asking, so she connected a bit later. So she's asking where she can find more information about the online master. We mentioned very briefly at the beginning.
Okay, send me an email is the best thing to do. Look at the contact information in the email and I can give you some information on that. We don't offer an online master's in itself. We have some a corona measure for an online master's, but it's not finalized. But we do have online courses that you can do, but they're not a master's program.
Thank you so much. Another question is about internship. They ask us if internship are part of the program and if those are provided by the university or if it's the student who has to find an internship.
Yeah, so we get that question all the time. So something I would say is IHS students, they tend to be sort of, we have some students who are fresh graduates, but most students are sort of 28, 29 years old. They have started their careers. And so what they want is they want an intense one-year program that they can then go back into the job sector and find a new career. So we have an intense year, which means there isn't time to complete internship, really. You're really learning, it's very, very full on. So it's sort of teaching 4 to 5 days a week. So there isn't really time for an internship in between. Unless you're Superman, you can try, but there's not really time, I'm afraid.
Thank you so much. Another question is about different tracks. So we mentioned earlier, can I start with one of the track and then change it later if I realize I'm more interested in another one?
Yeah, so unfortunately not. So that's something that we make it really clear to students. When you make an application, you're applying to that track. So what we do is we make sure that we have lots of points of information with you. So when you apply, I will stay in contact with you and you will meet alumni and the academic staff. So you're really, really confident in your choice, because once you've started the program, unfortunately, we cannot ask you to change. What we do is around June, I'll send you an email and say, this is your last chance to change your mind. You can change your mind and you can reapply, but we always tell students, apply with a track in mind.
Thank you so much. Another question is from Rafael, who is asking us about scholarships. So we mentioned them earlier, but if we can talk a little bit more about scholarship. And the second question is related to the TOEFL. So he did the exam, and in these pandemic times, there is not possible to take the test in his country, and he has a test score that expired a year before. Can the test be taken into consideration, or he has to do the test again?
It would depend on the test. So I would need to please apply and I can give you feedback on that. But what I would say is we are trying to be as flexible with our processes as possible when it comes to these things. So we have got information on this on our website. And also I would say that there are still tests available, so you can do some sort of online tests, but it would really depend on your individual situation, Raphael.
Thank you so much. And the first question was about scholarships, if we can go back into the scholarship. Thank you.
Yeah. So the best thing I would say is contact me directly, because we can give you sort of very specific information on this. Generally, the main criteria on scholarships are you currently employed and what country are you from? A lot of local governments will provide sort of scholarship information. But yeah, email us directly, Raphael, and we can answer this for you.
Thank you so much. Juan Martinez is asking us, what study program is the most adequate for applicate the urban and environmental development in the municipalities? So it's quite specific.
So what I would say is, because it's very interdisciplinary what we're trying to do in our classroom, all of our students could sort of do this. Many of our students do work in local government. They do work at sort of a municipal level. But what I would say is a skill that is sort of is always being required of students is being able to use these sort of new tools that we have with large data analysis, quantitative data analysis, things like this. So the Urban Environment Sustainability Climate Change course is very data-led, which is very helpful for our students. But generally also it really depends on the municipality, because if you want someone who can sort of analyze a problem, find an intervention, bring a team forward, maybe you need to look at planning and policy making instead, and you can use data analysis in your thesis maybe instead.
Thank you. Juan also had another question. So basically, he says he's from Colombia, and he's actually asking, in terms of like those master's degree, what sort of skills that can give him, so he can go back and implement some sort of policies in South and Central America. Okay. He's talking about social, environmental, and public policies.
Okay, so one of our like most effective alumni communities is actually in Colombia. We had something like 10 Colombian students on our program last year, and many of them are either working already in the local government or they're working as academics. They work in the research field, sort of driving policy innovations and interventions from that side. So it really depends on what your interests are. We have a lot of our students focused on local economic resilience, because we know that a real focus for the government there is sort of upscaling the municipal level. How do you sort of generate new urban spaces to sort of generate economic development outside of sort of Bogota and sort of these main clustered areas?
Thank you. Another question, Juan also says thanks. Thank you, Juan, for your question. Another question is, I think it's from Colombia, is asking how many students find a job and stay in the Netherlands after graduating? Is it difficult to get a visa?
Okay. So there's a lot of different parts to that question, so it's a bit difficult. So most of our students come to us and they're already employed. So what that means is they already have a contract saying they'll take a sabbatical, they will study for 1 year, and they'll go back to their job. So most of our students are doing this. Some of the students, many of the students who are not doing this, they do choose to stay. Like I said, you have 1 full year to find a job in the Netherlands, and they're quite successful. A lot of them move into the research field. So many of them work at either different faculties of the Erasmus University, or they work for different universities around locally as well.
Perfect, thank you so much. Another question is about how many students get admitted every year and how the selection is done, and do I need a GMAT? Okay,
you don't need a GMAT, I would say. So because we're sort of looking at a very global audience, we have sort of quite generic entry criteria. So what we're really assessing is how well would you fit in within quite a small group of urban professionals who sort of need to work together quite closely. Generally though, it's important for people to know we have sort of over 2,000 applications every year. We admit about 50% of these. So that's over 1,000 students, and the classroom is rarely more than 125 students. So we have to be quite selective even with the admitted ones. Which is why we sort of have this long admissions period. So please apply as soon as possible.
Thank you. At this point, I actually have a question. What are like the characteristics of an application to stand out? I mean, you mentioned good numbers, like a lot of people are actually applying, 50% get admitted. What is required? Yeah,
so it's a great question. So like I was saying, so what we require is probably very low, but what makes a really good application is much harder to tell. So the trick really is we're very clear on our website what we're interested in, what our research interested in, what our staff are very interested in. So an application that responds to the information, that really responds to the course content, it really responds to what our academics are very interested in, then we really know that they've done their research, that they are committed to us as an institution, they're not applying to lots of different places. So that really helps us decide on a good application.
Perfect. And at this point, I actually would like to ask you, what are the most common mistakes that you see in applications? Just to share some sort of tips.
Yeah, I mean, so it's everything. It's the wrong name of the university. It's the wrong name of the program. Writing all in capitals. Please don't do any of these things. No, but it's we deliberately have an application procedure that really ask you to tell us more about your interests. And so what we have is students who really don't take the time to fill out these questions in a thoughtful, responsive way. There's no word limit on those questions, so please take the opportunity to tell us what your motivations are and what you're hoping to gain from studying with us also.
Thank you so much. Before you showed us like a slide with all the alumni network, which is great, can we just maybe talk a little bit more about the the job market? So when these people graduate from those master's program, most likely what sort of position they will end in. So we mentioned a little bit, but maybe if we can just broaden up on this.
So I think what everyone needs to, what we all can agree on is, so urban development is it's a very broad field, but equally it's very targeted. It's not obviously related to lots of fields in itself. But what we find is, because we have this structure where you're going to learn about urban development in a very broad sense, you will learn about all of these disciplines, whilst also focusing very, very deeply on your chosen track of interest. It means that you can be quite effective in as a manager in a small team. It means that you can sort of stand at sort of a decision-making angle and say, well, these are the things we need to do. I can understand the bottlenecks are going to be. So what this means, our students have been very effective in sort of leading new teams in sort of startups. And also many of our students, the most natural place for them to go after they do this master's is they move into policy analysis, research analysis, these sorts of spaces. You have sort of a rich knowledge of sort of quantitative and qualitative data analysis. You're also confident leading on sort of a project level. And these are sort of these very universal things that are useful for sort of established organizations like Philips, like I was saying, but also for startups that really need a very competent mid-level manager as well.
Thank you so much. We have Matthias was asking about contact details. We will be sending you also an email after this webinar with all the useful information, and we will be also sharing the presentation with you so you can take actually all the information that you need. We actually about to end with our live presentation. We've been answering a lot of questions that you sent through the Q&A. Actually wanted to ask Fergal, is because before closing, I mean, a lot has been said about the program, about the what makes the institution unique. As you said, it's not a university. Is there anything else, like some sort of like advice that you feel like you want to share with the audience tonight, people they're thinking of applying or they're, you know, interested to find out more?
Yeah, so I mean, I always say this to all the students. It's I think it's the environment that we offer in which you'll be learning in is actually quite special. So we're very small. So it's going to be you and 100 students on this intensive program. So you're going to know each other extremely well, doing group work and all these sorts of things. It will be stressful, but what we deliberately do when we're sort of designing the program is we make sure that you'll be with students that you don't already know. So maybe this person has a background in environmental engineering. And what I'm going to do is we're going to make sure that you're working in groups with a lawyer from Colombia and with a civil servant from Uganda and an architect from China. And because what we find is that you're all very established and you have these deep pockets of knowledge that already exist. And we can't sort of teach you what you all know individually, but it's the learning that you're going to gain from each other in that classroom that really sort of broadens your horizons, but also makes you sort of think in a different way. And that's the real value of the program.
Thank you so much. As we said, applications are open. We will be sending you an email with all the details, but if you're interested in applying, do it as soon as possible. As Fergal said, they are expecting lots of application. Many students apply every year. We do hope that this live session was informative and we were able to answer all the questions you had. As I said, in case you do have any further questions, don't worry, we will be sending you an email. I'd like to thank Fergal for his time this afternoon, for the presentation and for answering all of our questions. And I also like to thank all the participants for being connected with us and for all of their very, very interesting questions. So we look forward to seeing you next time at the next IHS live presentation, and have a good rest of the day, evening, morning, depending on where you are connecting from.
Thanks so much, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.